This is Lama Tantrapa. Welcome to the Secrets of Qigong Masters, the talk show brought to you by Academy of Qidao, the first and only school in the world offering professional education in Tai Chi and Qigong coaching. To find out about the programs offered by Academy of Qidao and to learn how you too can become a certified Tai Chi or Qigong coach, please go to qigongcoaching.com. Today, I'm delighted to introduce to you Dr. Steve Jones, who is a board-certified clinical hypnotherapist in practice since 1980s. He's the author of 25 books on such topics as hypnosis, the law of attraction, and weight loss. Dr. Steve has also created over 9,000 hypnosis audio recordings and 22 different online certification programs. He's also the author of Healing with Qigong online program. Thank you so much, Dr. Steve, for being on our show today.
Oh, Lama, thank you for having me here.
How did you get started with hypnosis and energy arts in general?
Well, I was in high school. My parents sent me to Riverside Military Academy in Gainesville, Georgia, because I wasn't a very attentive student in ninth grade. So for 10th through 12th grade, they sent me there. And I was bored, actually, in military school. I didn't like it. I felt trapped, and I looked for a way out. So that's when I started studying astral projection, reading auras, hypnosis. I would get books about these topics and start reading them. So the way I started focusing on hypnosis was I started hypnotizing my roommates there. We had roommates in military school, and soon the athletes came to me wanting to exercise better, and the smart kids came to me wanting to study better. And so all these years later, I'm still working with athletes and smart kids, except now the athletes are the Dodgers baseball team, and the smart kids are NASA. It was also during that time that I got very interested in all sorts of metaphysical arts, and I still to this day am.
Fantastic. So I bet Qigong falls under the definition of metaphysical arts.
in my opinion, it does. It has, of course, it has a very physical component as well, but I think it has a strong metaphysical component the way I look at it, yes.
Interesting. And I would imagine that hypnotherapy also then would be a form of a metaphysical art, because obviously some degree of belief involved in the practice of hypnosis. Let me ask you, do you find any parallels between the practice of hypnosis and the practice of Qigong or other energy arts?
Well, I think that they're all about getting better. You know, just improving yourself, being the best person that you can do, getting yourself back to your center, getting back to a place where you can operate at your peak potential. I think that's what all of these things share in common.
Mm-hmm. Well, I bet you have some funny or interesting episodes from your background. Would you care to share any interesting or hilarious things about your personal experiences with learning these arts?
Well,
Most of our listeners are probably in the process of learning these arts, and there is no final destination at which you say, okay, I've learned it, so I no longer study. Well, how about you?
I can say that, for me, balance has always been an issue, and I'm sure that comes up a lot. So physical balance has always been an issue. So in anything that requires any sort of physical balance, I tend to be a little slower of a student, I guess we might say. So nothing really hilarious has happened, thank goodness. But, being wobbly has definitely happened.
How about any challenges with the study of hypnosis or other related disciplines?
I've dealt with a lot of challenges throughout my career. I deal with usually very serious issues with hypnosis. I used to deal with people who are potentially suicidal, for example. So I don't see too much funny stuff, unfortunately. I see people who really want to change and who really have tried everything else before they come to that point. So
any
that's
particular
kind of the world
dramatic transformations that you observed or experienced yourself?
Oh, absolutely. With hypnosis, I remember one story that's near and dear to my heart. This girl, her name was Jen, and she must have been about 22 years old at the time. And she came to me, she was suicidal, and she was about 150 pounds over her ideal weight. So not 150 pounds, but 150 pounds over her ideal weight. So she was quite heavy. She was close to 300 pounds. And her mom came in with her, and Jan's plan was to kill herself. But she figured she'd try one more thing, which was hypnosis. And so she did. And I worked with her for 5 sessions, I believe it was. It was about a little over 10 years ago now. And we worked on things like confidence, not binge eating, exercise, making appropriate food choices, that kind of thing. And I didn't hear from her for a long time. It was about a year or two. And then I got a letter from her, a handwritten letter, back when people wrote handwritten letters. And she told me that not only was she alive, but she was thriving. She had married the man of her dreams, which in her dreams was a 6'2" architect. I believe they had a child on the way, and everything was going really well. So rather than being a testimonial for myself, I consider that a testimonial for the power of hypnosis, and beyond that, just the resilience of the human mind, the belief that we all have that we can get better, and that there is no end of the road. There's always something we can do to improve our situation.
Well, no doubt about that. And the way that I often refer to the study of hypnosis, Qigong, and other metaphysical arts, as you put it, is that what we know about ourselves is just the tip of the iceberg compared to what we don't know about ourselves, whether it is about our consciousness or any aspect of our life in general. And so, essentially, this study is about clearing the interface between what we know, the tip of the iceberg, and what we don't know. And we can peek through that interface to learn a few things about ourselves that we didn't know before, and perhaps tap into some resources that weren't available to us previously. And I would imagine that this applies to your work. What would be the primary focus for you in your teaching and practice careers?
Well, these days, since I've been written up in Forbes magazine as a millionaire, and I've been on the Millionaire Matchmaker TV show a couple times as a millionaire, and I've been on Bravo's TV network, Below Deck, as a millionaire, people know me as a millionaire. So these days, my clients, and I charge a lot of money these days for my sessions, so these days, when I say these days, I mean in about the past 5 years, clients are coming to me to work on wealth building almost exclusively. So that's what I deal with in the last 5 years. They fly to me or fly me to them, and we work on getting their mindset all around building wealth, and not doing that out of greed, but doing that out of sharing their gift with the world on a much bigger scale and feeling good about what they do. I found that when people get rich doing things they don't believe in, it doesn't last long. They find a way to sabotage it. But when they get rich sharing their gift with the world, it just keeps growing and growing, and it gives back.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating because just last year I hosted the Summit of Qigong Masters. It was dedicated to the topic of abundance through being in the flow. So apparently abundance is something that can be experienced when we tap into those resources that are in that underwater part of the iceberg, so to speak.
Yes,
or
absolutely.
In the unknown part of ourselves that perhaps we didn't know how to tap into before. And I would imagine that also there are some people in your circles. Obviously there are plenty of people in Qigong and Tai Chi circles and other related disciplines that have some kind of negative attitude towards wealth. So when I organized and hosted that summit, some Qigong masters refused to participate. They said, I don't really like the whole topic of abundance. It's like how to make money and how to become rich. I say, well, what's wrong with that? They say, oh no, this is just no good. I don't believe in that kind of things. Like it was some kind of a guilty pleasure that they had to deny themselves. So how would you describe your journey to becoming a millionaire, doing what you love doing, helping other people?
Well, my journey has been very interesting, and it's interesting. I share the same mindset as you do. In fact, I'm flying to New York in a couple days to hang out with my friend Joe Vitale, who was in the movie The Secret, who definitely believes the way we do. Yeah, and wealth is not a bad thing. It's just kind of a scoreboard, if you will, for how much good you're doing in the world. I mean, if you're not adding value to people's lives, they're not going to add money to your bank account. It's as simple as that. So it's a really good way to tell how much you're affecting people's lives in a positive way. So I think that I understand where they're coming from, the people you're dealing with, because I've got to do a talk when I come back from New York. I've got to do a talk about that kind of thing, about marketing for hypnotherapists, to a group of hypnotherapists who really look at me as sort of a renegade, which I guess your group looks at you as kind of, why is this guy making all this money in this field? That's taking away from the honesty and the integrity of it. That's what they think in their minds. But what they're not realizing is the connection between making your contribution bigger to the world, and then the world just helps you keep track of that by paying you. It's just natural that you would be compensated for that.
Right. Well, and you also mentioned that you charge a lot of money for your services, and so do I. And often people complain about that. They say, you are just only working with rich people. You don't have anything to offer to people who can't afford your services. Those are the people who need help to become better off. And of course, yes, the rich people, they have money to invest in somebody like you so they can become even richer. What do you say to that?
Well, here, first of all, the reason I charge so much, I charge $25,000 for the first 2-hour session, which is a fair amount of money. How much do you charge, by the way?
Oh, that's a lot more than I charge. I only charge $500 for a session.
Okay, good. That's respectable. I like that. Well, the way I look at it is, if I spend my time in a recording studio, recording hypnosis recordings, I have about 9,000 hypnosis recordings so far. If I spend my time in a recording studio recording that, there's a good chance that hour I spend or that 2 hours I spend in that recording studio over the course of my life is going to make me a lot of money. It could even make me $1 million over the course of my life. So I'm taking that $1 million that they're taking away from me by making me, or allowing me, I should say, to spend 2 hours with them. There's got to be a cost for that. They're taking me away from helping the world, helping hundreds of thousands of people, and making potentially $1 million over my lifetime, and they want all that time to themselves. There should be a cost for that. They're taking me away from my work, helping the world, and focusing on them. Now, they don't have to go with me. If they don't want to use me, they don't have to pay $25,000. I think there are plenty of hypnotherapists who are equally as good as me who they could go to, but some choose to go to me. So what I say to the people who say, well, that's too much, you're only helping the rich, I have a lot of recordings on my website, stevegjones.com, that they can go to and they can get that range from $30 to $80. That's fairly affordable. And oftentimes we have sales where they're a lot less expensive than that. Also, I have a standing offer. If someone will let me hypnotize them and put it on YouTube so that people can see the process, I won't charge anything. That's pro bono. That's free. If they will just sign a waiver saying I can use it on YouTube so that I can benefit a large group of people. So there are, people who can say whatever they want, but I feel very well justified in my fees.
Well, and also it's interesting that if you didn't have a reasonable income coming in, then you wouldn't be able to offer any work of pro bono. You wouldn't be able to offer your services to the larger groups of people who come to your website and who want to just experience perhaps an audio recording of a hypnosis session for such a small amount of money. So in other words,
right.
There is a certain degree of give and take. And I totally agree that there is also a respect for your own time and your own value. And the more you respect your time and your value, the more justified you feel about charging what you charge. Now, this is also something that probably bugs down a lot of hypnotherapists, as well as Qigong teachers, Tai Chi practitioners, and other folks. How did you come up with probably a new way of looking at your own value and your own time? When did you come up with that, and what was your previous perspective on it?
Well, first of all, when I first started hypnotherapy, I wasn't charging anything. I was doing it free. And then I started charging money. By the time I moved to California, that's when I realized my expenses went up and I had to charge more. So I started charging, I think, $50 for the first 2-hour sessions, $50. And then I think it was $30 for a follow-up. Then I raised it up to, I think it was $150 for the first 2-hour session and $75 for a follow-up. Then I raised it up to $250 for the first session.
And we're talking about what, 1990s?
By the time I was up to these prices, now we're into about 2004.
Okay.
We're up to 2004. 1990s, I was still in the lower prices, around $30. But I wish I'd raised it a lot sooner than that. So 2004, we're up to about $250 for the first session, and then I moved across the country to Georgia on an island there, and I was still getting a lot of clients there. I thought, well, I leave my Beverly Hills office, I'll have fewer clients. No, I still had plenty of clients in Georgia, so I raised my rates to $2,500 for the first session, and then
the jump of
I was still
10 times magnitude.
10 times, yes. I jumped it up 10 times. Because what I was trying to do, it was taking away from my studio time. I had a lot of new recordings I wanted to record. And when you have a client, you have to stop everything. You can only focus on them. And so it requires, everyone in the office has to be quiet or leave. You know, it's a lot of work when you work one-on-one with a client. A lot of preparation. So I figured, yeah, I'll do it 10 times. I still had a fair amount of clients. I thought, you know, I've got to carve myself out more time. I've got to start valuing myself, and so I did 10 times again. You know, $25,000. That has made the difference. Now I'm where I need to be, where I'm dealing with just a few clients, and I've got a lot of time to record, a lot of time to do things like this, like an interview. You know, things that help a lot of people, not just one person. So, you know, for me, like, you know, right now I'm giving my time freely, as are you. We're not charging for this, of course. This is a contribution to the world. But if I were bogged down with 8 hours a day of seeing clients, I wouldn't be able to do this kind of thing. So that's where the balance is for me.
Fantastic. Well, and when you meet other practitioners in your profession, or run across other professionals who seem to believe that their value is not as high as they may be worth, or perhaps they just don't have this self-confidence, what do you tell them? Or do you have anything to say that would help them step up to the next level of success?
You know, I wish I had some magic words, and that's something that I'm working on right now, because in 3 weeks I have to give a talk to a lot of hypnotherapists who are in that exact situation, sort of like the Qigong people that you dealt with. Yeah. And as you know, it can be tough, because you can say everything and it makes sense and you know it's true because you've lived it, but getting them to believe it is a real challenge. So what I'm going to do, you know, actually what I'm positioning it as is a talk on how to make money online. So with that, I can show them actual data. I can show them data from shopping carts and from emails, because they compile all the data. I can show them that what I'm talking about actually works, and it's not going to take them any more effort than what they're expending right now seeing clients. If they just spend their time making recordings and videos that they can put out there and getting them on websites and creating programs, that time is going to be much more valuable over here, where it generates more money. So that's how I'm going to approach it. I'm going to be very data-driven. I'm going to actually show them facts and figures and numbers. So I'm hoping that will work. Check back with me and I'll tell you how it goes.
Definitely. Where is the conference?
The conference is in Las Vegas.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, so it should be good. Good bunch of people. But then again, we're dealing with the mindset with a lot, not all of them, but you know, a lot of the group. The mindset is that to make a lot of money and to look at it as a huge money-generating empire is wrong, because it should focus on the patient and not on building wealth. What I hope to convey is that you can do both. you can have integrity, and you can bring something to individuals, and at the same time, you can build wealth.
Mm-hmm. And when you focus on the patient, obviously, in your case, the patients are also looking for improving their standing in terms of finances or in terms of wealth building. You're not only helping them overcome perhaps their own limitations when it comes to thinking or believing something about wealth or money, but also helping yourself overcome perhaps your own limitations, don't you? When you work with people, you probably help yourself as well.
Oh, absolutely. I used to come across this all the time when I had my office in Beverly Hills about 10 years ago. It was interesting. All the clients who came in, whatever I was going through that week, they would have that challenge going on. It was the week of, stress, or the week of, thinking about bills, or because back then I had a lot of debt, and I would think about that, or the week of thinking about relationships. Whatever I was going through, it was always interesting how that week almost every patient I had would be going through the same thing. So now that we're dealing with extreme wealth, it's interesting what you pointed out, because a lot of the people that they might be dealing with are also want extreme wealth, and it's almost like they are the supposed to be the messenger of that. Maybe the message is getting stopped right there. But a lot of hypnotherapists actually don't deal with people who want to make more money. A lot of them deal with people who want to lose weight or stop smoking. Those are kind of the bread and butter of the hypnotherapist, dealing with those kinds of issues. But hopefully hypnotherapists can get more comfortable with working with people who want to make more money, because the stories are far more interesting. When you hear the stories of their travels and so forth, wealthy people have very interesting things that they do. So it makes life actually more colorful.
Well, what would you say is the reason why you chose this particular focus in your practice at the current time?
Well, I didn't really choose it. It chose me, because I didn't expect to get on The Millionaire Matchmaker as a millionaire, or on Bravo's Below Deck as a millionaire. I didn't expect people to recognize me from those shows. I didn't expect to be called up one day by Forbes, who wanted to do an article on me about wealth. Those things just happened. And so if those things hadn't happened, I would still be focusing on other things just like any other hypnotherapist, weight loss and stopping smoking and some wealth things. Also, working with Joe Vitale from The Secret, and Bob Doyle from The Secret, and Bill Harris from The Secret. These guys are very in tune with themselves, and they're very in tune with manifestation. And so the crowd that I hang out with these days is all about that. And I see the beauty in that, and I see the power in that, and I see the help that I can give people concerning that. So the path kind of led me. I didn't really choose it. It kind of chose me and led me.
Fantastic. Well, this is what I call being in the flow.
Yeah.
That's exactly what our summit was last year about. It was about how to experience abundance by being in the flow. The question is, how do you get in the flow? How do you feel where the flow is going so that you actually go in the right direction, so to speak? It's not only enough to be at the right place at the right time. It's crucial to also go in the right direction, right?
Yeah, the door opens, you have to walk through it. I mean, you have to. When you see an opportunity, if you don't take it, then what's the point of the opportunity?
And what's the secret of being in the flow?
Well, it is that. It is taking the opportunities. There's an old saying that says, grab opportunity when it goes by, because it's bald in the back. Meaning, if you try to grab opportunity after it goes, there's nothing to grab onto. It's just going to get away from you. So you have to grab it when it comes toward you. So I look at it. I look at life that way. If an opportunity is coming toward you, grab it. It's not as if I have different opportunities than other people. I guess at this point they're slightly different. Maybe they're on a different level. But we all have opportunities every day. We get called up and we get asked to do this and asked to do that. And people who get in the habit of saying no, they just close the door to all of that. When you start welcoming these things into your life, the good things, if somebody offers you drugs, you say no. But if someone offers you an opportunity to do something wonderful and amazing, then yes, you accept it. And that's the real secret, is to getting in and staying in the flow.
Interesting. So the opportunistic marketing, as it were. And and
In a good sense. Yeah.
right. So you basically are open and sensitive to feeling where the energy is flowing, and if you resonate with a particular direction that it's flowing in, then you don't hesitate to step into that flow and go where the flow is taking you.
Much better wording. I like what you said. Absolutely. That's what I meant to say.
Well, this is why I study and practice Qigong, is because it provides such an eloquent way to express a lot of complex psychological and philosophical approaches that we could spend thousands of words trying to explain, instead of just painting the picture with a few words using the vocabulary of energy awareness. Speaking of which, can you tell us a little bit about your studies of Qigong? When did you get involved with Qigong? How did you come up with the whole idea of, I should study Qigong?
Well, my studies with Qigong were fairly brief. It was when I was in California. I looked into it. I took a few classes on it, and I found it very, very enlightening and very interesting, and just very relaxing. Also, I noticed the people who were involved in it were the types of people who I wanted to associate with. They were just the people, like yourself, who were very in tune with themselves and were working on something bigger. I found actually during my time in California that I was constantly exposed to people who were like that, who were really working on something big and really big projects, not just in the entertainment business, which was very common, but also just in life in general. So it was during that time, around the year 2000, 2001.
And who did you study it with?
I don't remember the name of the teacher. It was like a community type group that got together.
Very
and
cool.
had meetings once a week.
So what inspired you to come up with the Healing with Qigong online program?
I just remembered that it was just a very powerful, relaxing tool, and I was thinking, what can I bring? That year that I created that program, I was creating a number of those types of programs, which I call metaphysical programs, and I was thinking, what have I been exposed to in my life that I can now go into a little more deeply for the purpose of just sharing with the world something that I think would be valuable. So I made a list, and on that list was reading auras, astral projection, Qigong, all kinds of things that I really had a numerology was on that list, things that I had a very strong interest in because I thought they had a tremendous amount of value.
Fascinating. Can you tell that there are parallels or perhaps overlaps in the core principles between the energy arts such as Qigong and hypnosis?
I believe I can. Hypnosis these days for me is something that people use as a tool to improve themselves, to build their wealth. When I see a client come in, that's what they want from me. They want me to get them back in the game, back in the mindset to improve their wealth. Whereas Qigong is more holistic than that, far more holistic. But as we look at the entire spectrum of things that hypnosis does work with, we realize that anything with the subconscious mind is involved is a good candidate. For example, having calmness, having focus, having concentration, having balance in your life. These things are very good candidates to work on with hypnosis because they have to do with the subconscious mind. They're also featured very prominently in the teachings of Qigong.
Absolutely, yes. And that was definitely something I found personally because I also hypnotherapist and NLP practitioner by training. I don't focus as much on hypnosis as you do, but it's definitely an important element of my studies. And what I see is that Qigong, if it's done right, provides an opportunity to embody certain resources that we tap into, or certain states of consciousness that we find more resourceful, which, if we embody them, we literally start walking the talk. We literally become a manifestation of that state of consciousness that we want to have, that would help support manifestation of our dreams. So
you say things so much better than I do. Yes, I agree with that.
well, I guess
Exactly.
having a talk show helps. And so the embodiment is what I'm particularly curious about, because in my studies and practice of hypnotherapy, there was hardly any focus on embodiment in terms of, for example, what I came up with is a term, a culture of movement, or particularly harmonious culture of movement if we're talking about finding greater harmony with the universe and the powers that be. And if we discover how to move in a certain way, you are the way you move. So then you literally start walking your talk. Every step you take on earth becomes a physical manifestation of that state of consciousness that we're talking about, more harmonious or perhaps more abundant state of consciousness.
I like that.
Now, in hypnosis, most of the work is done in altered states when the person is basically out. How do you help people embody these new states, or do you help them embody new states?
Yeah, absolutely. We're always programming them for what they'll do after the session, for what they'll do when they come out of the session. So I will have people actually think of themselves as, walking taller, their chin up rather than looking down, having better posture. I will say things like that during the confidence building hypnosis session. So when I work with someone, I always spend the first session working on confidence, and those are some of the things we work on. The physical manifestations of being confident. When you're confident, you hold yourself a certain way, you act a certain way, you talk a certain way. These things are common among confident people.
True.
And so when you're dealing with hypnosis, you're dealing with you're not so much concerned about what's going on right then and there when they're knocked out. You're dealing with what are they going to be like when they come out of this? How is it going to show up in their life? How are they going to do things differently? So that's how it's incorporated, by programming them, by having them imagine themselves interacting differently with their world on a day-to-day basis, and then letting them go out there and act differently.
Fantastic. You mentioned the study of astral projection, and I study the Tibetan practice of dream yoga. And in dream yoga, just like in the study of astral projection, we talk about being in dreaming and experiencing basically what it's like to be in your dream body, the body that represents you in your dreams. The way that the astral body or dream body feels and moves and acts has a certain effect on the way that we use our physical body afterwards. And so essentially it becomes an interesting kind of a sandbox. In time of hypnosis or in time of dreaming, we can actually experiment to find out how our dream body would need to be in order to be able to experience greater confidence, for instance. And then once we find that, then we can also integrate it into the physical body, in a sense, bringing both the dream body and the physical body into a greater union. Does it make sense?
That's wonderful. I mean, I remember I used to have dreams as a kid where I would walk. I was a pretty shy kid. I was pretty reserved. But I would have dreams of, walking down the street in a certain way and being really cool and feeling good about myself. And in my dream, I was the complete opposite of what I was in my everyday life. And I started thinking about that. I didn't think about dream body. I didn't know that term at the time. But I thought, how can I be more like this guy in the dream? I mean, this guy's cool. People like this guy. He's fun. He's confident. How can I be more like that? And I actually had a roommate in college when I was at the University of Florida, who his name was Jeff, and his counseling of me, without even meaning to do it, was very helpful for me in forming some of my early thoughts about hypnosis and how I can help people. He said, he used to realize that when he was drunk, when he drank a lot of alcohol, he would become what he called the excellent Jeff. Excellent Jeff was fun and funny at parties, and people liked hanging around and made a lot of jokes. But when he was sober, he wasn't excellent Jeff. And so he realized that he didn't need to be drunk to be excellent Jeff. He could tap into that anytime. So that is the secret. Getting to that part of you that already exists in your everyday life under everyday normal circumstances. That's very powerful.
Oh yeah, and this is really interesting because the excellent Jeff was basically an alter ego, or perhaps we can even talk about some sort of multiple personality. And that was the personality that would take the driver's seat when he was inebriated or under the influence of alcohol. And he discovered a way to basically bring that personality up and front and center when he was not under the influence. How did he do that?
It's almost like it was a logical thing for him. It just kind of occurred to him one day that he wanted that power, and so he kind of willed it to happen. He remembered everything he did, so he just started doing it. He actually didn't have any technique. He didn't use hypnosis. I didn't use hypnosis on him. He just willed it. For a lot of people, it's not that simple. It could be, but it's not. They have to have some help, some sort of tool like hypnosis or something like that.
Yeah, it would be fantastic if all our clients and patients could just will that they would become who they want to become.
We would be out of business if they did, but it would be a better world.
Well, I really am a great proponent of self-empowerment. Of course, it is not great for our business, but it is fantastic for pretty much everybody who comes across this approach to life. That essentially they have the power to transform their lives and make their lives what they deserve to experience, and also they don't have to rely on somebody even if somebody can help. For example, as a hypnotherapist, you don't babysit them for an extended period of time. You probably do just a few sessions and then release them into the world, as it were, and see how they do. So
Absolutely.
It's not a babysitting business.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, if they want long-term talk therapy, they can go to a psychiatrist or some sort of counselor who will talk to them for 10 years. And I don't mean that sarcastically, even though it sounds it. But, some people like that. They want 10 years of talk therapy. My stepmom did that, and she got a lot out of it. So some people do that, and they really enjoy it. I've done a little bit of that. During my time in Beverly Hills, I went to a talk therapist because I was dealing with so many people's challenges every day that I would go once a week to a therapist, and I would dump all this stuff on her, and I would say, "Here's what I'm dealing with. It's starting to bother me," and then it was a cathartic way for me to deal with all that stuff. But most people don't want that. They don't want something where they have to go somewhere on a regular basis and continue going. They do want that quick fix, or as quick as possible. And I always talk to hypnotherapists about that. There's a big difference between talk therapy and hypnotherapy. Talk therapy, it's okay to see them for week after week after week after week and keep charging them. In hypnotherapy, it's either going to work or it's not going to work. If it's not going to work, send them to someone else. If it is going to work, it's going to work in a very short period of time, just like you said.
Well, it's interesting because there is definitely this kind of a business model approach, and there is also a different approach that I personally found resonating with, and that is called coaching. So much so that I studied coaching and I created the whole profession of Qigong coaching. And in coaching approach, the coach actually helps the person basically not just overcome the past experience, but mostly focus on where they want to be in the future. So it's not past-oriented, it's a future-oriented type of approach. And then develop a certain game plan and then make sure that the person actually is ready to take the steps that they committed to take. If they committed to take certain steps and they didn't, well, keep them accountable to that, and also maintaining access to the resources that they need to get access to in order to continue traveling the journey. And I wonder if there are any ways to perhaps find mutual compatibility between what I just described and what you described in terms of a quick fix.
Well, I like coaching long term. I think someone should have a coach as long as they can afford one. Even if they can't afford one, they should still have one. I don't look at coaches as a quick fix. I put them in a different category. It's great because they're accountability partners. You're hopefully always working on something bigger and bigger. So I believe a coach is good to have all along. So I look at hypnotherapy as kind of like an oil change in a car. You're fixing something specific, losing weight, stopping smoking, gaining more confidence, gaining more motivation. Something quick and simple and focused that you're working on. With coaching, anything could come up at any time because people are, as they get more successful, they have more opportunities and they need more encouragement, they need more resources from that coach, and perhaps they even change coaches and get different coaches. I had a coach when I lived in California, as does everyone who lives in California, I'm pretty sure, and I had him for about a year. He made a huge difference in my life. He used to work for Tony Robbins, and I hired him to work for me. At the time, I thought, oh my goodness, because this is back when I had a lot of debt, and I was paying this coach on top of this. I forget what I was paying him, but I think it was like $800 a month, $200 a week, and I thought, this is a lot of money for this guy. Is that about right? I thought, wow, I'm really spending a lot of money. But this guy was really, really tough on me. I remember one time, these words still stick in my head. He said, Steve, because I said something like, I can't on the phone. I can't do that this week. He said, Steve, from now on, the words I can't are no longer acceptable. And I thought, oh, wow, this guy's, pretty tough. Okay, well, then I start thinking of other ways to excuse myself from doing it, and I wasn't able to. So I thought, well, I guess I've got to do it. And he also told me a story of a person who, because I was thinking of getting out of hypnosis at the time, he convinced me to stay in hypnosis. And he told me a story of a guy who started in the water bottle business when it wasn't very popular. And everybody else started in it at that time, they got out of it. But he became very successful, became a multi-millionaire because he stayed in it. And that actually played out in my life. I wasn't making a tremendous amount of money at that time, but I stayed in it and became the multimillionaire that he was talking about. So he was absolutely right. I should give him a shout out, by the way. His name is Chris Berg, B-E-R-G, Chris Berg. And he was just absolutely amazing. I don't even know if he's still doing coaching, but just a very powerful influence. So coaching is a different category, in my opinion. If you can always have a coach, always have a coach.
Well, I think coaches also should learn a certain language patterning, for example, from NLP. For example, if he studied with Tony Robbins, or he worked for Tony Robbins, I would imagine he studied with him, he should probably have learned about using a slightly different language patterning. Instead of telling you can't should not be in your vocabulary anymore. Because, if you tell the subconscious mind that don't even think about using the word can't, then what do you think you're going to be thinking?
Right, yeah. True. Perhaps he could have presented it differently, but what he did actually did have a tremendous impact.
Fascinating. Well, I wonder what you think about the reasons why such arts as yoga and meditation and other metaphysical practices like that become more and more popular in America. And why do you think Qigong is lagging behind?
I think it's all advertising. I think, let's look at, somebody made a joke recently that, they said, when did kale get a publicist? The leafy vegetable kale. When I was a kid, I didn't hear about kale. I think kale was the stuff that you put around food that you're going to eat. It was kind of like the decoration. I don't think anyone ate kale when I was a kid. But now everyone eats kale, including me. I've got a refrigerator full of it. I put it in my juicer, my blender every day, and I drink kale because it's good for you. So I think Qigong is kind of like kale was when I was a kid. It's there. People know it has a purpose, but they're not really clear on the fact that it should be used on a regular basis. That it's really, really good for you. It hasn't gotten a lot of mainstream publicity. What happens is that when big companies get a hold of something like yoga or meditation, they really make it big because you suddenly see it in bookstores, you see it in Barnes and Noble, you see a program on it, you see books. A lot of books can be in a bookstore, but not all of them are in the front. When you go to check out or when you walk in, so they start putting stuff that they want to push in the front. Qigong hasn't gotten that. It's still back in the the section where it is. I imagine the metaphysical section, but or something similar to that. But it's not front and center. So it's really all about publicity and advertising, I think.
Fascinating. Maybe also because it's spelled so weirdly. Who would think out?
People don't know Qigong? Yeah,
Right.
I think so. People are afraid to say it. They don't know how to say it.
Well, let me ask you this. What do you think are the most important steps that could help professional Qigong practitioners become more successful at what they're doing?
Well, I think it's just advertising. I think you get your name out there, do a good job. They say if you want to be great, first be good. So be a good person, do a good job for people, get your name out there, but do it on a big scale. YouTube videos are always powerful. I've gotten a lot of attention for YouTube videos. So make YouTube videos about Qigong. Show how to do it. Put a YouTube video out there. Put a YouTube video. I guarantee if any Qigong practitioner wants to become more wealthy with Qigong, for the next year, meaning starting tomorrow, put out one video about Qigong on YouTube every single day of the year with a link to your website where you're going to collect the emails of that person and you're going to start promoting your products related to Qigong. If you do that for a year, one video a day, you're going to have tremendous success. It's all about getting the word out there.
I definitely agree about getting the word out, but you probably were not putting out YouTube videos about hypnosis when you had your breakthrough a few years back.
I already was, actually. I was. I had, and that's what actually led to me getting found by Bravo TV network and by a lot of others. One of the distributors I work with found me on eBay. I was selling my recordings on eBay. So I actually did. YouTube has been a big part of what I've gone through. It's not what led to my breakthrough. No, that's separate. You're right about that. When I had my epiphany and I thought, hey, I've got to carve out more time to make these recordings, that was not related to YouTube. But YouTube has definitely gotten the word out there, and it's free advertising. I don't see why everyone doesn't use it. And a video doesn't have to be elaborate. You don't have to show a lot of postures and work on the lighting just being right. You just sit like I am or like you are and just talk about it. Well, what do you know about it? Tell one thing you know about it every day and put a video out there about that with a link back to your website.
I agree. And I think this is a fantastic invitation for a lot of Qigong practitioners to also just get more comfortable with the modern internet technology, because it seems like many of them still live in the 20th century. And of course,
yeah.
I wonder about you. What are your personal goals in your practice and your career, let's say, for the next couple of years? You obviously achieved a lot more than many of us have. Where would you like to be in the next year or two?
Well, for a while I was entertaining having a TV show, but I've been approached by a lot of TV producers who said, yes, Steve, Dr. Steve, we're going to have a TV show about hypnosis. You're going to be the host. I hear that all the time now. I've stopped worrying about that. I've stopped thinking about that manifesting because that's out of my hands. So if you asked me a year ago, I would have said, well, we're focused on TV, but I realized that's not within my power to do. I do everything I can, and I have to let go of that and see if it's going to happen. They do it based on who wants to watch what. And Tony Robbins had a great show on NBC. They canceled it after a few episodes because the viewership was not where they wanted it to be. So it's all based on ratings and money and things like that. So what I focus on now are things that I can control. So, for example, I'm working with Joe Vitale, as I mentioned. We're always creating new products, new services, new ways to help the world. We just created something. We filmed it in Las Vegas. We'll be releasing it early next year. That's designed to change the way people think about their wealth possibilities. I'm working with Patty Stanger, the Millionaire Matchmaker, since I was on her show. She actually became a business partner of mine. And with Patty, we're working on things that are also going to help people believe in their wealth possibilities and their relationship possibilities. So it's things like that are driven by the desire that I have and the desire that the people I work with have to share on a really big level something that's very powerful.
Well, would it be fair to offer some of your insights about wealth building and developing greater sense of confidence and a sense of deservedness, if you will, if there is such a word, to our audience by perhaps recording additional interviews with you in the future?
Oh, anytime. Yeah, I'm always up for that. I love taking the time to do my part in contributing to the world and getting the word out there about the power of the subconscious mind. So absolutely, Lama, anytime.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing with us about your practice and your stories. And I want to remind our listeners that you are listening, or if you're watching, then you are enjoying watching the interview with Dr. Steve Jones on the talk show The Secrets of Qigong Masters, brought to you by Academy of Qidao, the first and only school in the world offering professional education in Tai Chi and Qigong coaching. To find out how you too can become a certified Tai Chi or Qigong coach, please go to qigongcoaching.com. Thank you.
Thank you.